one of the world's most famous cities and major symbol of the American dream. A true world metropolis, a fantastic mosaic, fascinating and exciting. Where old and new create a fantastic symbiosis. Both the historical and the hypermodern exist harmoniously, side by side. Its population comes from all over the world, a fact that makes this city so unique. Indeed, its combination of cultures and social classes has become the city's trademark. Manhattan Island is the most well-known district of New York City, and the Rockefeller Center in Midtown is often referred to as the heart of New York. One of the highest building complexes built by John D. Rockefeller Jr. with a viewing platform top of the rock. From the 70th floor at a height of 260 meters, the panoramic view extends across Manhattan, an ocean of buildings framed by the Hudson and East River. Behind the Rockefeller Center is the Roman Catholic St. Patrick's Cathedral, the largest and most magnificent church in the United States. The success story of real estate tycoon and broker Donald Trump is typical of New York, with his Trump building a radiant temple of power. As Manhattan gradually became densely populated, the city's urban planners appeared to forget the inclusion of green spaces. It was not for some time that an undeveloped swampland became what is now known as Central Park. An amazing number of horse-drawn loads of earth were transported here, rocks blasted away, and waterways created. Each tree and each bush, each bridge, pathway, monument and water pool was meticulously planned. The city's green lung was created. An oasis amid skyscraper canyons. The Grand Central Terminal divides Park Avenue, a huge station with which the railroad kings, the Venderbilts, left an indelible mark. The huge hall, with its magnificent vaulted ceiling in Beaux Arts style, has been the city's central railway station for 12 lines since 1913. Its infrastructure is ideal, with pedestrian, rail and access roads distributed on various levels, the actual railway being at ground level. In 1978, the then largest passenger station in the world was designated as an historic monument. Directly beyond the station is another highly visible architectural monument, the MetLife Building, which was formerly the headquarters of Pan Am Airlines, which inaugurated transatlantic flights in 1936. As Manhattan became tightly packed, the city began to grow upwards with a vast number of skyscrapers. The prerequisite for the construction of such giants was a sturdy steel skeleton reaching into the sky. The Chinatown building of the leading New York real estate dealer was groundbreaking for its Art Deco design, a facade of blossoms and flowers. The most important attribute of the building was the invention of engineer Elisha Otis. A security measure fitted within a passenger elevator. Otis invented a brake that stopped instantly if the supporting cable snapped. The city's main roads are like canyons carved deep between vast, towering buildings. Chrysler Building is one of the city's artistic highlights. Walter P. Chrysler created his headquarters in stainless steel and adapted it to the age of the automobile. He adorned his personal monument with numerous car motifs, radiators, tires, and wheels of cars from the 1930s. The Art Deco tower resembles the fins of a car's radiator. The United Nations building is the headquarters of the UN and venue of the General Assembly since the 1950s. A gondola called the Tram travels over the East River to Roosevelt Island. But Manhattan is still the center of this innovative metropolis. Only here in New York could an unusual structure like that of the Flatiron Building have been built. Since its construction, this pressing iron has become one of the milestones of skyscraper construction. However, one building alone symbolizes the glamour and spectacle of this world city, the Empire State Building. For 40 years, it was the tallest building in the world. 102 floors, 381 meters above sea level. Up to 3,400 workers built an average of 4.5 floors a week. And each year, millions of visitors enjoy its breathtaking views. It rightly bears the nickname Cathedral of Heaven. New York City is a miracle of tireless energy, accompanied by the sound of constant car horns, wailing sirens, and a cacophony of general noise. The tallest skyscrapers, incredible traffic, the largest bridges, and amid all this, a huge park. Hectic, loud, demanding, large, and powerful. At first, city planning as conducted in European cities was non-existent here. Everyone built what, how, and where they wished. It was only in 1811 that the city fathers intervened and finally set down a formal street network for Manhattan. The island in the center of New York is 21.5 kilometers long and between 1.3 and 3.7 kilometers wide. "15 sectors divide Manhattan, which could not be more multicultural. Countless parades, tiny markets, and some of the most famous museums in the world, such as the Guggenheim and Metropolitan. The Greenwich District is like a village with well-kept buildings of red brick and brown sandstone, and roads that bend, cross, and cut. Until the 1960s, it was mainly artists and writers who lived here, but now it's become a pricey and much sought-after residential area. In 1870, the first plans for an underground railway were drawn up, but the project was shelved for some time. Instead, an elevated railway was built. The first means of transport for the masses remained in operation until 1954, when it began to decline, until it was decided to create a park here. Parts of the structure have been preserved and have been transformed into Highline Park, a green oasis high above 10th Avenue. Here there are walks between shrubs planted among old tracks and flanked by narrow canyons of buildings. A recreation area measuring 3 kilometers, yet another attraction in this city of extravagance. Its name explains its location. Soho stands for south of Houston Street, a former industrial district with factory buildings and warehouses that featured cast iron architecture. This area has also become highly fashionable. The old buildings were sold at high prices, and exclusive art galleries, fancy boutiques and fine restaurants were created. It's a long time since this area fell into disrepair, and where the buildings stood empty and artists moved in with no regard for the law. Today, Soho comes at one of the highest price tags in town, and graffiti is now regarded as a work of art. From the beginning of the 1900s, Italian immigrants settled in Little Italy, with restaurants, cafes and delicatessens. The buildings and their zigzag fire escapes are now owned by businessmen who've turned these iconic buildings into profit. The confines of Chinatown are inhabited by 150,000 Chinese, most of whom are unable to speak a word of English. They come from China, Taiwan and Hong Kong. Chinese characters wherever one looks, and restaurants and Asian stores on every street corner. Life here has its own rules: noisy, confused and chaotic. The famous Wall Street was named after a wall which at that time protected the growing city against attack by Native American Indians. However, the roots of its subsequent claim to fame were laid in 1792. The young state desperately needed investment, and therefore the powers that be decided to issue bonds. 24 bankers met here under a sycamore tree and founded the New York Stock Exchange, today the largest and most important stock exchange in the world. The 24th of October 1929 became known as Black Thursday. The stock market crashed, and with it the economies of the entire world. But it revived, and now money dominates all. There is also a Cathedral of Commerce. Frank W. Woolworth had his New York headquarters built in monumental style. Until the 1930s, the Gothic Woolworth Building was the tallest structure in New York. Facades with curious details, such as bats and other animals. Woolworth came up with a brilliant idea. His customers could both look at and touch the products all on sale at 5 cents. The 11th of September 2001 marked another turning point. At Ground Zero, museums and further buildings have replaced the ill-fated Twin Towers. The huge Brooklyn Bridge connects Manhattan and Brooklyn. In 1883, it was the largest suspension bridge in the world and the first to be constructed of steel. Father and son Roebling planned its construction and would employ brand new techniques of bridge design, from the manufacture of its supporting cables to the submersion of its load-bearing structures. For 16 years, some 600 workers took part in its construction. Some died due to divers' paralysis caused by working beneath the water. However, the bridge eventually became a reality. The reality of two innovative dreamers. New York owes its world city status to its fine harbor. The piers of South Street Seaport conveyed goods from every corner of the world. Here docked the great sailing ships of the day. Nearby is Fulton Fish Market, the largest fish market in the world. Here the fish is examined, auctioned, and finally purchased. Each day at 4 o'clock in the morning, 75 wholesalers turn over 350,000 pounds of fish. However, the fruits of the sea no longer come from the East River, but in refrigerated ships and transporters from all over the world. Global trade on a massive scale. A relaxing trip on a Circle Line boat around the island of Manhattan is a most rewarding experience. The East River opens up again and again with new and beautiful views of the Brooklyn Bridge and the splendid buildings of South Street. On the Hudson River, Pier 17 leads past the imposing Statue of Liberty, situated on the tiny Liberty Island, and on to Ellis Island. This place became a symbol of hope and freedom for the many immigrants who arrived here in their thousands. Today, it's an ever-changing world metropolis whose inhabitants make it exciting and unique, vibrant and colourful. A helicopter city tour is a great way by which to gain a unique and breathtaking overview of the city, both historical and contemporary. In 1524, Giovanni da Verrazzano was the first European to discover Manhattan Bay, the island of hills. But for the native inhabitants, everything was to change when in 1609 Henry Hudson arrived here on behalf of the Dutch East India Company. His search for a northwest passage to India and China proved to be fruitless. However, he brought home valuable furs, which interested the Dutch. In 1624, 32 Dutch and Walloon settler families set foot on the southern tip of the island and founded the New Amsterdam Fort. In 1926, as the third governor of New Netherland, Peter Minuit purchased the island from the native Indians. The price? Glass beads and buttons. The settlement flourished, but coexistence with the natives proved problematical. And for protection, a stone wall was built. Wall Street. In 1664, the British enforced their claims militarily. The small town became New York and developed at a rapid pace. On the 4th of July, 1776, the colonialists declared their independence. And in 1789, George Washington became the country's first president. In 1806, Cornelius Vanderbilt set up a free ferry service to Staten Island, and free it has remained. The ferry journey opens up further spectacular views of the Manhattan skyline and the Statue of Liberty. Staten Island is twice the size of Manhattan and is considered to be a forgotten borough, with rural areas and a residential idyll of the white middle classes. Most tourists use the ferry to provide a different perspective of New York, to take in the atmosphere and experience the feeling of being a New Yorker. As well as to escape the hustle and bustle of the Big Apple, and yet to be close to the most famous skyline in the world. Some 65,000 passengers travel back and forth on the ferries each day. There's also a ferry to Ellis Island. The massive wave of immigrants in the 19th century made it necessary to open a well-organized access point, a gateway to the New World. The main building must have looked like a palace to the 17 million immigrants who arrived here. They were thoroughly controlled and checked before they were allowed to enter. Today, the main building is listed as an immigration museum. Close by, on a small island, is New York's most famous landmark, the Statue of Liberty. There's a constant flow of visitors. America's most important symbol was inaugurated on the 28th of October, 1886, accompanied by the sound of 21 cannons. Sculptor Frederic Bartholdi and architect Gustave Eiffel created this gift donated by France, 93 meters high and 225 barrels heavy. An elevator travels the first 10 floors, then a spiral staircase leads up to the crown. 354 steps on 12 more floors. A fine iron frame construction with an external layer of copper-coated steel. Its 300 hammered copper plates are secured to iron beams and fixed to a central column of iron. The head of Lady Liberty leads to the crown, and from here there are stunning views from several windows. A magnificent sight. France donated the statue, and the New Yorkers constructed a suitable platform. The site was Bedloe's Island. Finally, on the 28th of October, 1886, President Grover Cleveland officially inaugurated the Statue of Liberty. New York City is a vibrant, cosmopolitan place that never sleeps. In the hustle and bustle of the night, Manhattan exudes a veritable party atmosphere. And both Times Square and Broadway compete with giant, glittering neon signs to catch the attention of the masses. The Big Apple is also a major capital of world-class entertainment. Magic, fascination, and myth. A symbol of freedom and great wealth. The reality of a dream. A metropolis of the unexpected and the extreme. New York City is most certainly unique. A city that's very much alive and kicking, self-confident, and always a surprise.